Hey guys, Plain Jane here. I'm with Pilot Pete. Pilot Pete has been an excellent pilot, few dodgy bits, 30 years, 1,000 hours, and we're going to smoke a cigar, but we're very far away from this beautiful Grumman Tiger. And we had an excellent flight today on the Grass airstrip. Okay, so tell me when you thought you wanted to be a pilot. Like, were you a child, adult?
No, I was an adult. I only went flying once, I think with my father and one of his friends when I was about 10 years old. Didn't really occur to me that flying was a thing until I was in my mid to late 20s, and my ex-wife bought me a gift certificate for a demonstration flight at the local airport.
Oh, that's right. Was it a Cessna?
It was. Well, edit. It was a Piper Tomahawk.
Oh, there we go. How long ago was that?
1989. That was almost 30 years ago.
Bloody hell. So your wife bought you this, and then when you were flying, what was the feeling you got that made you just hold on to aviation?
Absolute freedom.
And not your wife, if I...
Edit.
Freedom was the key. So you wanted freedom. Drop the whole ball.
Yeah, the airplane doesn't talk back.
I like that. I also enjoy that. Absolute freedom. A little bit dodgy.
Yeah, we could put some 100 Lowlight on the end of that. See if that gets it going. It might.
Do you remember your first solo flight? I bloody remember it.
I do, yeah.
Did you like? Is it just a universal thing that you think, what the bloody hell am I doing up here? Or is that just me?
We went around the pattern a couple of times, and then we landed. Engine's still running. My instructor says, I'm going to hop out of the plane and you're going to do your solo. And I'm like,
did you know beforehand?
Really? I mean, I guess I knew it was coming, but I didn't know it was happening at that exact moment.
Right.
And he jumped out of the plane, and he had a handheld radio with him. He said, I'll be listening to you on the radio. Just go do what we've been practicing. You're going to be fine.
And was that in California? Or
it was, yeah,
California?
in Santa Rosa. And he got out of the plane, and I taxied back out to the active, made my calls.
Was your heart beating quickly?
No, I just remember it being very normal. What I remember was a drastic difference was, we're flying Cessna 150s, which are just crappy planes to start with.
Yeah.
Right? Or I should say low-powered planes. I've had 3 of them, so they're not crappy. Take that back.
Okay, while you do the talking bit, I'm going to improve my lighting situation.
Good job. What impressed me the most was how fast that plane climbed without that lard ass on the other side of the aircraft with me. Because in a Cessna 150, you're pretty much at max takeoff weight with a full load of fuel and a couple of people.
Yeah.
And if you ate a piece of cherry pie for dessert, you're probably over gross weight.
Right.
So for that guy to get out of the plane meant the thing flew like a rocket ship.
He didn't warn you about that beforehand?
No, I don't think we ever talked about it at all. I just, because my only experience at that point had been with 2 full-grown men in the airplane.
Right.
So when there was only 1 full-grown man in the airplane,
you're like, it does fly.
It flew quite a bit better. Yeah, it was awesome. So that's what I remember the most about it. I think the flying part was fine, and I mean, clearly I got my solo endorsement, so I didn't crash a plane.
How was your first cross country?
I remember that it was scary because I knew where I was going. I had flown it before.
Because this was 30 years ago.
But now I'm doing it by myself.
And what did you have? I mean, you probably didn't have ForeFlight back then, right?
Hell no, this is all paper. Yeah. So you've got a paper sectional that's been folded and creased 39 times. Yeah. So when you open it up, there's actually a hole where the airport's supposed to be.
You're like, paper fly.
Exactly. So, before the
did you draw your line on it and had your...
Before the days of GPS and cell phones and all that stuff, you actually had a piece of paper and a ruler, and you had to kind of know what you were doing.
Yeah.
And again, I think that's something everybody should learn. I think it makes you a better pilot because, for example, today, we went flying today and we're looking for a little grass strip that our friends own. It's not on the map. So we had to know where we were going and how to get there, and if it was to the west of us or the south of us, and make our turns.
Roughly how many miles from where we took off?
Right. Nowadays, you punch everything into a GPS, and it makes it.
You like to be numb.
It makes it pretty straightforward,
Yeah.
but you should know how to get around. You should know how to fly the airplane. You should, I mean, all of the more like the fly by the seat of your pants things. I think that's maybe what's missing today.
So I'll talk about you for a couple of minutes, and you can. What I like about Peter is I've flown with him 4 times, something like that. Is when he flies, he's very organic. It's very natural for him. It's like he's done it before, and it's just a real pleasure to go flying with him, because he's been flying since I was in nappies, so it's really delightful.
Wow.
Sorry,
Didn't see that coming. Yeah.
But it's delightful to learn, because my instructor, when I was getting my private, had flown less than a year, and he'd been a CFI less than a month. So, I mean, we were talking during the pre-flight about counterweights and the ground court. Never bloody heard of those words before, you know?
Right.
So it's nice to actually not regurgitate, but learn. And that's what I just find so precious every time we fly, is how much I learn flying with you.
Well, I enjoy it too. And the funny thing is that, you know, you could be the guy that flies for 30 years or the woman who's only flown for 30 weeks.
Right.
You're going to learn something from the other pilot in the
You
airplane.
are.
So I've learned a few things from you. You're very, very, very precise tracking the magenta line. Like literally one of the best people I've ever flown with tracking the line.
Oh, can we just stop and
yeah.
cheers to that? Yeah, thank you. So speaking of learning moments, do you think you've had a few massive learning moments through the past 3 decades?
Yeah, I think I have.
What are the ones that,
I have to relight this.
you know, you're gonna have to keep it, I list it so well for you. Number 1 learning moment, how to keep a cigar lit.
busy talking to you.
That's fair, that's fair.
Windy out here.
I know.
Maybe we should go in the hangar by the aviation fuel and light it.
Light right up. Light right up. It's okay. I'll relight both of them. I'm a good co-pilot today.
Right. Carry on.
So tell us about your moments that you have for, you know, in your history that really stand out to you.
Well, there's fun moments and then there's horrifying moments. Fun moments certainly are all the airplanes that I've bought over the years.
And you've bought 4?
This will be number 6 over here.
Bless you.
Whether you're buying the plane by yourself or in a partnership or a flying club like this plane, there's something really unique and fun and special to be able to say, I just bought an airplane yesterday. People are, what did you do this weekend? I bought an airplane.
Bought an airplane.
It's pretty cool. And not a lot of people can say it because, well, I guess anybody could buy an airplane, but what are they going to do with it if they don't know how to fly it? So if we just talk about pilots, there's a very, very, very small percentage of the population that can fly an airplane, number 1. And then a small percentage of that who are going to buy their own airplanes and maintain them and wash and wax them and, you know, keep them maintained.
I think that's the hardest part. Like when
it
people
is.
think, oh, you bought an airplane, it's actually okay. What's hard is maintaining
Keeping
an
it up.
airplane.
Yeah, it's really.
Because you have to think insurance, hangars, annuals.
Yep.
Do you guys have to do 100 hours since you're in a group or no?
So yeah, there's maintenance and I mean just the cost of fuel and oil and such. But
Yeah.
anyways, happy days for sure are the days that you buy the airplane.
Yeah.
There are also happy days when you sell the airplane too, because sometimes you make a profit. You sold it for about the same amount of money that you bought it for.
And you
so
got a
had
lot of
yourself
enjoyment from it.
A free plane for a few years, yeah, absolutely. And then there are, oh, thanks.
I'll
Then
go
there
back
are,
to this one now.
right, sure.
We're there. We're there in our friendship.
There we go. Yeah, we are. Interview, trade cigars, trade wine glasses.
okay. It's
It's all
okay.
good.
What would you say, you know, I'm a relatively new aviator myself. What are some of the biggest learning moments that you would say to yourself at the beginning of your aviation career?
Don't be in a hurry. Don't be in a hurry. And that means don't be in a hurry to get home, because we've all heard the stories about the people that crash
Yep.
on their way home because they pushed through
Is
weather
it called
they
get
shouldn't have been.
home-itis or something?
Get home-itis. Don't be in a hurry to do your pre-flight. Don't be in a hurry to clean the plane before you fly it, because oftentimes you'll find things that you didn't see in the pre-flight inspection.
Just by cleaning the plane?
Sure, yeah.
Really?
If you spend 4 or 5 hours washing this plane, you're going to find the loose screws and the missing thises and that's.
I never even thought about that.
Absolutely. And then the other thing too is, like, I love giving people rides in the plane.
Good
So
for you.
I've always done Young
Good
Eagles.
for you.
Thank you. All my kids certainly have flown with me. All my friends and family.
That deserves a little bit more wine, I think, if you don't mind.
Amen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nice red from California, by the way.
Yep.
Your home state.
Another Rodney Strong. Don't be in a hurry to get somebody in the plane and show them how cool you are, because oftentimes you're going to miss or neglect something that could be critical in that flight.
Yeah.
It is cool to be a pilot. It is fun. It's great to take people on flights. There's a high level of responsibility that comes with that privilege.
Agreed. Agreed.
And you can easily get sucked into the, I'm so cool, I'm a pilot, I just bought a plane yesterday, let's go fly it really fast. And no, that's not really the best way to handle it. So a couple of times I have caught myself putting people in the plane and not being maybe as thorough as I should be. It's never resulted in anything bad, but you know, the old saying is it takes 3 mistakes to kill you. So if one mistake is that you're too fast on your pre-flight because you've got a girlfriend that you want to take for a ride with you, and the second mistake is maybe you didn't sump the fuel or you didn't check how much fuel's on board, and then the third mistake is you're talking to the pretty girl while you're flying and not paying attention that you just ran out of fuel. Now we have a problem.
Yeah.
So it all snowballs, and what it really, in my mind, what it really goes back to ultimately is just slow down and take your time. This is not a hurry up kind of a thing. This should be, in my mind, this is a pleasurable thing to be able to go out and fly like we did tonight. Go land on a grass strip out in the middle of Texas, come back home, have a beer, you know. There's no real reason to push all that stuff. Let's just enjoy it and have fun.
So what you're saying is, if you put a saying on a slogan, it would be aviate and then intoxicate. Or take your time. Or take your time.
I like it.
Is also a good one. And
Aviate,
Uber.
then intoxicate, and then then Uber home from the airport. Well, speaking of alcohol related, not alcohol induced, I did put a plane down once, old Cessna 150, and we had an engine failure. This is in Northern California in wine country, and you know, one of the things that everybody's taught is look for an open field. Where you're going to land, which way is the grass blowing, which way is the smoke from a fire blowing, so you know the wind direction. That's all great, except there are no open fields in California.
Because
They're
it's
all
wine country.
vineyards.
I was kind of a little worried when you were like, speaking of alcohol and aviating, I was like, ooh, should we say this?
Right.
YouTubies.
Well, so here's what happened, YouTubers. Engine failure, too far from the airport to glide in. The choices were put it down on a major freeway, which I don't know the idea of. although
And
people
why
do
didn't
it.
you know the idea? Because I've certainly watched
People do it
YouTubes
successfully.
of landing on the motorway.
I would argue that the people on the freeway are going to freak out when they see an airplane pop down in front of them.
And yeah, and you're always concerned that they're not looking. I mean, I remember when
Oh, for
I
sure.
had my engine out, I was like please move truck, there's no
Right,
horn, please move
right.
truck, there's no horn, you know?
I think that I don't love the idea, if I have to put a plane down, I don't love the idea of it being around a bunch of other people. Just because if somebody's gonna die or get injured, it should be me. It doesn't have to be any innocent bystander, so to speak. And my
It's very
worst,
kind of you.
thank you. My worst fear really would be setting the plane down on the freeway and having a mom with a bunch of kids in her minivan slam into me because she wasn't expecting to see an airplane fall out
Yeah,
of the sky in front
yeah.
of her. And people start getting hurt. I opted for the Vineyard, and
So you did land in a vignette.
yeah, land is the technical term.
Let's rewind. So you had your wife and your child in the
That is
next
correct.
slide. Yeah, I suppose.
That's
Sorry
very,
about it.
very
A lot of
much.
crashes in your life, isn't
Right.
there?
Oh, wow.
Sorry.
Edit.
Sorry.
British bitch.
Cheers for that. I'm glad you're really getting to know me. So,
The crash had nothing to do with the demise of our marriage. In fact, funny enough, the crash happened 2 weeks before we were to get married. And the chick
and then she realized you
still
couldn't
married
aviate
me.
you. And then she was like, I could improve on my pilot. Is there a person that
No, I
knows how to
believe she-
land on the landing strip?
I believe she said, he saved my life, I'll marry him. That's what I think she was thinking. Now, there were no injuries in this particular incident except for one, and it was at the very last moment before impact. I pushed her head down behind the glare shield because I didn't want her to get plexiglass blown in her face.
Which is wise. Which is wise.
I thought it was wise. What ended up happening was I ran her face across the electric flap switch and it cut her cheek open. So
Ow.
we crashed a plane, destroyed it, destroyed millions of dollars of Pinot Noir grapes, which is the alcohol portion of this story.
Now I'm tracking
see how
related.
that tied in.
We're contributing back now.
Right?
Actually.
we're buying back. This is actually Cessna Cabernet.
That's okay. Well, next time we'll get Pinot Noir in memory.
So, after the accident, the only injury was that she had a little cut on her cheekbone from the flap switch, and it healed back as a little pink scar, about this long on her cheekbone. And I kind of get a kick out of the fact that every day now, for the last, 20 years, when she puts her makeup on in the morning, she must be thinking about me.
Oh, that's very sweet. I'm glad you get a kick out of that. So, what I'm interested in
Shannon.
is why did the plane go down?
Carburetor heat cable was broken at the airbox.
So, what was your elevation when you realized, oh man, carb heat's broken?
Well, I don't think I ever realized that the carb heat was broken. The NTSB figured that out after they ran the engine on a test cell.
So how did you know?
What I knew was that at 1,500 feet the engine stopped running.
1,500.
Yeah.
So at 1,500 feet, you're flying, you're coming into land
Mm-hmm.
in California, and then all of a sudden, the engine just stopped.
It literally just stopped. I had actually called in for permission to land, got permission, let my thumb off the push to talk switch, and as I let my thumb off the switch, the propeller was just dead in the middle of the air. And I'm looking at it going,
Aviators,
what does that have to do
Nightmare,
with
yeah.
anything? What does the radio have to do with the propeller?
don't they say like usually go to the very last thing you just did?
So tried to restart the engine.
What did you think like first about the plane, or did you think about your wife, or did you think about you're going to die? What was like your first
I
thought?
never
in your
thought we were
head?
going to die.
Good for you. Good for
It
you.
never even entered my mind. And I mean, yeah, of course I was concerned about the people in the airplane, and especially the part where you have to, call your mayday and tell how many souls are on board. That makes me tear up to this day as I remember doing that. But the number one rule that I was taught, and probably a lot of your viewers, is fly the damn plane. Just fly it. So the motor fell off of the plane. The plane still flies. And amazingly enough, a Cessna 150 will glide for a really long time. Like, it seemed like an extraordinarily long time that we were in the air before we just finally ran out of altitude. There was a part where we were flying through a subdivision because I didn't want to land it was a brand new subdivision. I didn't want to land in the middle of where I thought kids would be playing basketball or soccer or riding their bicycles. I wanted to hop over the houses and get into the vineyard that was behind the housing. And I remember flying past like people's clotheslines, like in cartoons or in the movies.
Yeah.
And the plane was still flying. I just could not believe how long it lasted. I mean, as a matter of fact, I would love to do that whole thing again, knowing, that I would survive and not, hurt anybody. It would be kind of cool to go through that whole scenario.
You're describing like Tom Cruise in a movie. It's.
I don't know about that. It
seems so surreal.
It was totally surreal. Flying through people's backyards at treetop level, just moments before you run out of altitude and airspeed, and we landed. The plane got beat to hell. Don't really care. It saved our lives. I mean, it definitely took a beating for my family, and then called the insurance company and they sent a check.
If you do it all over again, would you do anything different? Like, I should have. I don't know. Maybe
Nope.
you landed inwind instead
Well,
of downwind.
so what I learned, what I learned about the carburetor heat control was that the cable had snapped out at the carb box where the plate swings back and forth, the butterfly swings back and forth for the carb heat. The cable had broken out there, so I'm pulling the cable in flight as we're taught to do, but it's not actuating the airbox. And
so when you say like airbox, like, is this the same as like carb heat on?
Exactly what it is.
Okay.
It's exactly the carb heat.
And what was your altitude when you think it probably snapped?
I don't know where it broke. I know that.
What was the highest you flew that day?
11,000.
And what was the temperature?
It was a January day. It had rained recently.
So it was moisture?
Yep. It was probably 70-ish degrees.
It is.
Yeah.
So basically, it was because of carb icing.
Oh, it was totally carb icing. Yeah. And I couldn't eliminate the carb icing because I couldn't actuate the carb heat because the cable snapped. I know the cable worked when we did the run-up because I remember the 50 RPM drop. But somewhere between takeoff and forced landing, and I probably pulled that carb heat cable on and off 5 or 10 times during that flight. So did it snap on try number 1 or try number 5? I don't really know. What I do know is that it wasn't there when I needed it.
Who would have thought carb icing in California on a 70-degree day?
It's a thing. And we're back
Let's
with
chop up.
Pilot Pete and Plain Jane.
Pilot Pete and Plain Jane.
Thank you.
So, as someone that's been flying for 30 years, do you have any other moments that just took your breath away while you're flying?
I got caught out in the fog off of the California coast once.
Did you? Was it
was-
a close temperature? Was it steam fog?
It was a weekend. I had flown up to a hotel up the coast. It was time to come home. I was by myself. I took off in what looked like clear, nice, decent weather, and literally averted my attention for 1 minute and looked forward, and I was in a cloud bank.
So what was the temperature?
Oh, I don't remember. I don't know any.
Was it warm? Was it cold? Was it?
It was warm for a coastal California, Northern California
Yeah.
day, so probably 60-ish.
Do you remember the gap between the temperature and dew point?
Nope.
No.
You're asking a lot of technical
Sorry.
questions about 30 years ago.
Sorry.
What I remember is flying, leaving the runway, flying out over the coast, and I don't know if I was looking for something in the plane or looking out the window or whatever, and when I looked back straight ahead of me, I was in the cloud. I'm like, holy shit.
Wow.
I don't edit. Holy poo-poo.
I also use holy poo-poo. This is my favorite term.
So I just looked at my instruments. I just kept the wings level and climbed out at 100 feet a minute. And
Wings level.
I never looked out the window. I just looked at those instruments, and 100 feet a minute is the slowest climb of your life when you think, well, this.
What made you
this
decide to do
could be
100
it.
feet instead of 500 feet a minute?
Because you're flying a Cessna 150, which isn't really a rocket ship. So
Yeah.
it was more important to me to just keep everything stable. And eventually I popped out on top, and I'm like, wow, it's really sunny up here. That's amazing. And flew home.
Have you flown in
But
any?
it could happen like,
Yeah,
boom.
like that.
Yeah.
What about the storms? Have you ran across some storms?
I've flown in a couple of situations where I've kind of had to beat the rain. Might have even done one of those with you recently.
I feel like that could be true.
Not a big fan of flying in stormy weather, but there are times when you're, kind of skirting around a storm cell. You're getting a little bit of rain from it. You can
Yeah.
see lightning in the distance.
Right.
I have a pretty healthy respect for all this stuff. And I'm not in a particular hurry to get anywhere. So if it came to the point of, wow, there's a whole storm line in front of us and we still got 80 miles to go, we're going to probably set the plane down and sleep the night on the couch in the pilot's lounge. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
I don't want to be the guy that ends up,
Yeah.
in the field or on the mountaintop somewhere.
Right.
Well, there are no mountaintops in Texas, so I guess that's really not an issue. But, things happen, and they mostly happen because people feel the need to get home, whatever that is. I have
Take
to
your
work in
time.
the morning.
Goes back to take your time.
I have to work in the morning. Well, not if you're dead, so don't push it.
I certainly, getting my student, when I was a student pilot, I certainly was guilty of, if I don't get back at a certain time, I'm getting charged an extra hour.
That's right, you gotta have the plane back by 5 or, yeah.
And you forget to just
Right.
aviate.
There are a lot of those circumstances. It is, those issues are minimized when you own your own plane or you're in a partnership like this.
Of course. Speaking of your partnership, can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. 1977 Grumman Tiger, owned by the Aero Club of Houston. It's a limited liability corporation that owns the plane and then leases it out to the Aero Club, of which there are currently 6 or 7 members. Pay a lump sum to get into the aircraft club, and you pay monthly dues.
But that lump sum is not bad because you get it
No.
back, right?
Yeah, the lump sum is $5,000, and you get it back when you leave the club. The monthly dues are $145. It covers
okay.
the hangar, covers the insurance for the group, and some oil changes and a couple of barbecues.
Couple of barbecues.
Yep. And then we charge ourselves $38 an hour to fly the plane dry, pay for your own fuel.
But the freedom, I go
it's-
to a lot of schools to rent planes, and it's like, if I lived in Conroe, Texas, I would absolutely join. So do consider it, and I'll add the link in the show notes.
That's
But
right,
it's
do
also
that.
very good just for obviously you like freedom.
I do.
So for the amount of freedom you get, and I think it's a good option. You get I'm only a private pilot, so when you get your private pilot license and you're trying to go the next step, I think it's such a wicked little.
Well, this is a great plane to train instrument on. Some of the pilots in our group are commercial pilots, so there's all sorts of
Learning,
ratings and
too.
options,
Yeah.
add-on ratings that you could get too. I think what's nice about having a plane, whether it's in a club situation like this or 2 or 3 partners invested in one aircraft, is that there's plenty of aircraft to go around. Some people say, oh my gosh, 6 guys with one airplane, nobody's ever going to be able to fly it very much. Well, that's not true at all, because most guys work Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
Some people don't want
Yeah,
to
we
fly
take it all the time.
Yeah. I mean,
If we're not using it, you might be able to get in.
That's right. Tuesday afternoon, nobody else was flying it, so we went. There's plenty of opportunity for it. I've owned planes with one partner, 2 partners, several
It's not a big deal having.
It's not a big
few,
deal at all. And we have a scheduling system that works it all out. Literally, all you got to do is just plug in the date that you want to go fly, and if somebody's name's not already in there, it's your plane.
Let's go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So speaking of planes, do you have a plane that has just been the absolute joy to fly?
Yeah, RV6.
I had a funny feeling you were going to say that.
Did
and
ya?
did you ever do any acrobats in that?
Acrobits.
That means you're going to cut me off from wine soon.
Edit. Aerobatics.
Well, that's, I guess that's the technical term for it, I guess.
Flippy bits.
You know, it's not like we invented the English language or anything.
Yeah, aerobatics. RV6. Well, most any RV there are capable of gentleman aerobatics, as they call them.
I
So
like that.
aileron
Gentleman.
rolls, barrel rolls, loops. It's all fun stuff. RV's super nimble airplane, very light on the controls. Power. I mean, we had an RV6 with a 180 horse engine, same engine that's in the Tiger,
180 horse though.
and a constant speed prop. And that thing
Really?
was a rocket ship. It was so.
Was
fun.
it a tail dragger or a tricycle?
Try.
Do you have a preference?
I guess my preference is for tri-gear only because that's what I've flown all my life. I have, a little over 1,000 hours, and it's, with the exception of 2 hours in a Citabria, it's all tricycle gear.
Citabria, yeah. I also have tiny bit amount of time in
Yeah.
Citabria.
I'm going to buy another RV. I don't know that it'll be a tricycle gear.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I think that, there are many schools of thought, and you'll have the tail dragger pilots that'll say, oh, the little wheels on the wrong end of the airplane. I get all that stuff. It's all.
Oh, those pompous pilots.
What?
You know,
Yeah.
that's how they come these days.
Some
you know?
pilots are. Not me. I'm very humble. So I don't know that I have a preference for one or the other. I have just flown
The tricycle.
tri-gear
Oh, yeah.
all my life. If I was going to buy another RV tonight, it would be a tricycle gear because I could fly it tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
If I was to really think about it and want to get a tail dragger RV, I'd have to get some transition training and spend a little time with a instructor, and that sounds fun to me too.
Look good. So, last question. If you were to give new aviators, or if you were to just give advice to aviators, period, what would your little tidbits be?
I would say that as a new pilot, I would say go out and fly as many different airplanes as you could. Even like within one particular brand, the range of airplanes is broad and the experiences
It's
are
actually
broad.
pretty exasperating. It's like,
Yeah.
oh
So-
man, so much learning.
If you were to look
brain
at
is growing too
Cessnas, for
much.
example, fly a Cessna 150 or 152, they're different. Fly a 172, fly a 182, they're different. Get into some of the older tail draggers like a 170 or 180, that's totally different. And the same thing holds true for the Piper line or even the Grumman line. Fly different airplane and get, it's one thing if a guy says, oh, I have 1,000 hours in Cessna 172s. That's great. He's probably a really proficient 172 pilot.
Yeah.
But that's not a very wide range of experience.
Right.
So I would say fly anything that you can get your hands on. Just about any pilot that I know of is willing to give rides and demonstrations and
Give back to the community.
go get a hamburger and let you fly the plane for half an hour on the way out or on the way back. Fly as many different planes as you can, and then when you think that you're ready to settle on one, fly a few different types before you actually buy one.
Good for you. Yeah.
To see
Yeah.
what suits you best. I
Do you have a
suppose.
plane that you really want to fly that you haven't flown?
P-51 Mustang.
P-51 Mustang.
Yep. I actually have a gift certificate for a flight. It's in California.
Ooh.
I'm in Texas. It's in California. I just have to go back there and do it. But it would be pretty awesome.
Yeah. Well, listen, thank you so much, Peter. And what you don't know about Peter, that he actually had another grandchild today. So
That's right. Baby number 2.
congratulations.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate you taking the time to educate me and hopefully educate the viewers. And if you like this as much as I did, please like and subscribe. As always, Plain Jane.